We have always sought Atlantis as a distant dream, but off the coast of Greece, reality has just surpassed the myth. A team of scientists has mapped a 6,000-year-old submerged city in Kiladha Bay, a finding that defies all logic. What they found are not simple fishermen's huts, but massive defensive walls and towers with technology that, according to official history, simply should not exist in the Stone Age. Are we facing a forgotten prehistoric superpower? Today, we are going to discover it. Before diving into this enigma, smash that like button, subscribe, and activate the bell to not miss the truth. Let's get to the bottom. The history of humanity is a puzzle missing half of its pieces. And, what is most frustrating for archaeologists, most of those lost pieces are not buried under the desert sand or hidden in mountain caves. They are underwater. For millennia, the sea level has acted like a giant eraser, swallowing coastlines, ports, and entire cities that were once the epicenter of human life. When we think of submerged cities, our mind, conditioned by pop culture, immediately jumps to Atlantis, that Platonic myth of technology and divine punishment. But scientific reality is often stranger and more fascinating than fiction. Recently, one premise has shaken the academic calm of the Mediterranean. A submerged city was mapped off the Greek coast, and the hidden structures defy all explanation. We are not talking about white marble columns from the classical period, nor statues of Olympian gods. We are talking about something much older, something primordial. In Kiladha Bay, in the Argolic Gulf, a team of explorers has found a 6,000-year-old ghost metropolis that, by all conventional rules of social evolution, should not exist. Or at least, it should not be so big, nor so complex, nor so defensive. This essay plunges into the turquoise waters of the Peloponnese to explore the site of Lambayanna. Through the lens of the Terra Submersa expedition, we will analyze how a late Neolithic settlement has forced scientists to rewrite the chapters on the dawn of civilization in Europe. What lies at the bottom are not disorganized ruins, but urban planning suggesting a prehistoric superpower that was ahead of its time, only to be devoured by the sea and oblivion. The discovery of Lambayanna was not a lucky fisherman's accident. It was the result of a deliberate and technologically advanced search. The expedition, a collaboration between the Swiss School of Archaeology in Greece and the Greek Ministry of Culture, was not looking for gold treasures. They were searching for the Holy Grail of European prehistory, the exact moment humans stopped being simple village farmers to become citizens of complex proto-states. What makes this story worthy of a science fiction novel is the tool used. The team relied on the Solar Impulse 2, the solar plane, and the PlanetSolar research vessel. Using cutting-edge marine geophysics technology, they swept the seabed looking for magnetic and structural anomalies. This fusion of archaeology and renewable energy is not a minor detail. By using the PlanetSolar, the world's largest solar catamaran, scientists could perform silent and precise mapping, without the vibrations or magnetic noise of traditional diesel engines that often disturb sensitive magnetometer readings. It was an almost poetic encounter. The cleanest technology of the future, unearthing the darkest secrets of the past with unprecedented clarity. When the data began arriving at the monitors on the surface, initial skepticism transformed into astonishment. The readings did not show simple piles of stones or ship ballast. They showed straight lines. They showed angles. They showed a perimeter. In nature, chaos is the norm. Geometric order is the signature of human intelligence. At a depth of between 1 and 3 meters, covered by millennia of silt and posidonia, lay a 12-hectare settlement, the equivalent of about 10 football fields. To put this in perspective, Finding a 12-hectare settlement in the year 2500 before Christ, Bronze Age, would be impressive, but expected. Finding it in the year 4000 before Christ, Late Neolithic, is a statistical anomaly. It is like finding a skyscraper in medieval London. It simply does not fit the scattered small tribes narrative we have accepted for decades. The detail that truly perplexes scientists and forms the core of our premise is the defensive nature of the site. The mapped structures include massive fortification walls. Why is this too advanced? Because in the Neolithic, organized warfare and the need for cyclopean fortifications were considered rare or non-existent on this scale. Sonar images and underwater excavations revealed sections of walls built with enormous stones, some of which show a sophistication in their placement that suggests specialized engineers, not just farmers stacking rocks. But the most intriguing are the towers. Horseshoe-shaped structures integrated into the wall have been identified. The presence of these fortifications implies two history-changing things: fear and wealth. No one builds a giant wall if they do not have something valuable to protect or someone to fear. This suggests that 6,000 years ago, society in the Aegean was already stratified, competitive, and possibly violent. There was us, and there was them, and we had something that they desperately wanted. This architecture defies conventional explanation because it suggests centralized authority. To build a wall of that caliber, you need someone who commands, someone who designs, and hundreds of people who obey and work without producing food for months. We are talking about a mobilization of human resources that shakes our understanding of the Neolithic economy. Moving multi-ton stones without the help of the wheel as we know it today, using only sleds, plant fiber ropes, and brute, muscular force required impeccable logistical coordination and an iron social hierarchy. They were not scattered bands improvising shelters. It was a society capable of a monumental collective effort. That is a sign of a complex social hierarchy, a proto-state that functioned thousands of years before the Minoan palaces of Crete or the Mycenaean citadels that inspired the Iliad. Once we overcome the shock of the walls, the interior of the submerged city offers a vision of daily life that is equally advanced. The mapping has revealed a density of rectangular and oval buildings, paved streets, and what appear to be communal storage areas. Divers have recovered thousands of artifacts, but one stands out: obsidian. Obsidian is a black volcanic glass, sharper than a modern surgeon's scalpel. And in the Stone Age, it was the equivalent of high-quality steel. The crucial thing is that there are no obsidian volcanoes in Kiladha Bay. The closest source is the island of Melos in the Cyclades. For Melos obsidian to reach Lambayanna in the industrial quantities found, there had to be a regular and sophisticated maritime trade network. This was not a casual hand-to-hand exchange. This was international trade. It means this city had ships capable of sailing open water, captains who knew the stars, and merchants who understood exchange value. The city, therefore, was not an isolated settlement. It was a node in a network, a logistical hub of prehistory. Lambayanna artisans did not just break stones, they sculpted them with mastery. The obsidian cores found show a pressure technique for flaking prismatic blades so perfect they look machine-made. This tells us about specialized workshops, about masters and apprentices, and about an added value that made this city an indispensable commercial beacon for the entire region, thus justifying its immense wealth. Imagine the port 6,000 years ago. Long-range canoes and perhaps the first sailing ships arriving loaded with black glass, ceramics, skins, and exotic foods. The sound of different dialects, the smell of dried fish and wood smoke. It was a vibrant civilization looking out to the horizon, totally ignorant that its future was underwater. The reference article mentions that the structures seem too advanced. This specifically refers to the masonry technique. In many Neolithic sites, houses were made of adobe and wood, ephemeral materials that disappear. In Lambayanna, the extensive use of stone for foundations and superstructures indicates an intention of permanence. These people were not nomads. They were planting their flag in the land and on the coast to stay. Urban planning is evident. The houses are not haphazardly piled. They follow patterns suggesting streets or thoroughfares. This implies laws, rules of coexistence, and urban planning. Furthermore, ovens and areas of incipient metallurgical processing, copper, have been found. While we are in the transition to the Bronze Age, finding evidence of metallurgy in such an old and organized context reinforces the idea that Kiladha was a high-tech center for its time. They were the Silicon Valley of 4000 before Christ, experimenting with fire and rock to create new materials that would give them an advantage over their neighbors. Let's pause quickly in the middle of these submerged ruins. We are looking at gigantic walls and towers built millennia before the pyramids, something that breaks all historical molds. Here is the million-dollar question. Why do you think a Stone Age society needed such advanced and paranoid defenses? Was it fear of an enemy invasion, or a simple demonstration of pure, hard power? Write fear or power in the comments. I want to see which theory wins. And if this prehistoric mystery is blowing your mind, do not forget to give the video a giant like and subscribe to the channel right now. Your support helps us continue unearthing secrets. Let's continue. If they were so advanced, so wealthy, and so well defended, what happened? Why did this city end up under 3 meters of water? This is the part of the video where climate science meets archaeology. The sinking of Lambayanna was not necessarily a doomsday event with giant waves in a single night, although earthquakes in Greece are common. Most likely, it was a slow-motion tragedy. Sea level has been rising since the end of the last ice age. 6,000 years ago, the sea level was significantly lower. What defies explanation is not that it flooded, but that such a capable society could not adapt or save itself. It is possible that the rise in sea level was accompanied by a change in water tables, salinizing their freshwater wells and ruining their crops before the water touched their gates. Or perhaps the wealth they accumulated attracted an enemy that their walls could not stop. However, the fact that the structures are so well preserved suggests they were covered by the sea relatively quickly in geological terms, protecting them from erosion and looting by later generations. The sea acted like amber, freezing the city at its moment of maximum splendor. Why does this discovery matter so much? Because it breaks the linear model of progress. We like to think that civilization began in Mesopotamia and Egypt and then slowly moved west. But Kiladha, Lambayanna demonstrates that Greece had complex urban centers contemporary with, or even earlier than the great dynasties we usually study. The term city is controversial in archaeology. It requires social stratification, trade, organized religion, and administration. What scientists have mapped off the Greek coast meets almost all the requirements. Millennia before Athens was even a village. This forces us to reconsider the population density of prehistoric Europe. It was not an empty continent dotted with hunter-gatherers. It was a landscape full of super sites, centers of power that competed, traded, and warred. The submerged city is proof that the dark age of prehistory was not dark at all. It was full of bright lights that simply went out before we could record them. The phrase "defy all explanation," used in media coverage, also alludes to our own ignorance. We often underestimate our ancestors. We assume that because they did not have iPhones or alphabetic writing, they were simple. But the engineering required to build Kiladha's defenses requires a deep knowledge of physics, geology, and logistics. The challenge for current historians is to interpret the purpose of these structures without projecting our own prejudices. Were the walls to defend against humans? Or were they symbolic barriers to separate the sacred from the profane? Were they dikes against a sea that was already beginning to threaten them? 3D mapping technology allows researchers to walk through these virtual streets without getting wet. In doing so, they are finding patterns of acoustics and visibility that suggest the city was designed not only to be safe, but to be impressive. It was a theater of power. It is impossible to talk about Kiladha without mentioning its neighbor, the Franchthi Cave, which shows human occupation from tens of thousands of years ago. The submerged city is likely the culmination of millennia of cultural evolution in that specific region. They did not appear out of nowhere. They are the descendants of a long line of survivors and innovators. What differentiates this site from other underwater finds like Pavlopetri, which is slightly younger from the Bronze Age, is the sheer scale in relation to its antiquity. Pavlopetri has streets and tombs, but Kiladha has the mass and brute force of a Neolithic fortress. It is like comparing a Roman villa to a medieval castle. Both are impressive, but they serve very different purposes. The discovery of Lambayanna is just the tip of the iceberg. It is estimated that less than 5% of the archaeological seabed has been explored. If a 12-hectare city could hide in shallow waters off a popular tourist coast until the 21st century, what else is down there? The technology used to map this city, underwater drones, photogrammetry, proton magnetometers, is becoming cheaper and more accessible. We are on the verge of a golden age of underwater discoveries. It is very likely that in the coming decades, we will find dozens of Kiladhas, each challenging our established chronology. This site teaches us humility. It reminds us that current geography is ephemeral. The coast we see today is not the coast our ancestors saw. And today's great cities, like New York, Tokyo, or London, are built on the edge of the same ocean that swallowed Lambayanna. In a way, studying this urban shipwreck is studying our own potential future. The 6,000-year-old submerged city in the Argolic Gulf is not a myth. It is a reality of stone and mud that has survived time. The hidden structures that defy explanation do so only because our current explanation of history is incomplete. It was not extraterrestrials or magical Atlanteans who built those walls and horseshoe-shaped towers. They were ingenious, ambitious, and organized human beings who built an empire of stone at the edge of the world, challenging their rivals and the elements. They managed to create a society that, for a moment, shone with the intensity of an advanced civilization in the middle of the Neolithic. In the end, the sea won, as it always does. But thanks to modern technology and the insatiable curiosity of archaeologists, the city has emerged again, not physically, but in the collective memory. It forces us to look at the blue map of the Mediterranean and ask ourselves, how many other stories, how many other impossibilities are waiting in the darkness, just meters from the surface, to tell us who we really were? The city of Kiladha is a reminder that progress is not a guarantee, and that history is not a straight line, but a tide that rises and falls, hiding and revealing truths that, at times, are too advanced for us to believe at first sight. It is unsettling to think that this Stone Age metropolis, with its cyclopean walls and international trade network, was hidden in plain sight under a few meters of turquoise water for millennia. This discovery forces us to rewrite the origins of civilization in Europe and reminds us that the sea is the world's most jealous and secretive museum. Now, I ask you, do you believe these colossal defenses were to protect against human invaders, or the very sea that finally devoured them? Leave me your craziest theory in the comments. I read them all. If this journey fascinated you, share the video and be sure to subscribe. See you in the next mystery.